Hi there, and welcome to this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Danielle Bain. Some crucial discussions continue in Manitouwadge between members of the volunteer fire department and the municipality. It all started earlier this month when the firefighters briefly walked off a job. But after several meetings and a speech during this week's open session of council, it appears things are returning to normal. Adam Riley has the latest.
Earlier this month, volunteer firefighters walked off the job, refusing to respond to calls, blaming the issues on a lack of communication between the town's CAO, its council, and the fire department itself. The sudden absence of service left the community of 2,000 relying on Marathon's fire department, located an hour away, to respond to any calls for service. Firefighters returned to the job 24 hours later, following assurances of meetings with town staff and council.
And we did have a very respectful meeting with them. We sat and they had a list of complaints that they wanted to talk about. And we asked them to provide that list to us in writing so that we could look at and maybe correct as many of them as possible before we had our next meeting.
However, McEachran says as of Tuesday, no list has been received by the township. The town then suggested an open meeting, which was turned down by the firefighters. One of the known communications issues was based on a lack of communication over the plan to hire a new fire chief. Following the retirement of Owen Cranny, Manitouwadge brought in Marathon Fire Chief Earl Gregg in an acting capacity until the search for a new fire chief ends, which McEachran says is almost complete.
We also have finished our evaluation of the people that applied for the job, and we're looking very much to pick a successful candidate and hopefully start that sometime, have him in here and working sometime in January.
Discussions over the situation continued this week at Wednesday's council meeting during a speech from Councillor Jim Moffat, who praised the efforts of several involved parties, called out social media users in the community, and announced a breakthrough with the firefighters.
It is quite unfortunate that some residents of our community have chosen to post criticisms and misinformation through the social media as a means of creating fear and hatred in our community. This is not what we are about. Council and staff have addressed the identified concerns of the fire department and agree to resolve the issues through policy changes and improved communication.
In his speech, Moffat noted 8 applications have been received by the township for the position of fire chief, 3 of which had virtual meetings and have been invited for an in-person meeting, where all members of the fire department would be able to meet with the potential chief. A spokesperson for the firefighters was unavailable for an interview, but in a statement called the latest developments a step in the right direction. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Emo Council was in session Friday afternoon for a special meeting of council to address the continuity of services for the municipality. The meeting was only open to the public for a minute before it was moved behind closed doors. But the town's mayor, Harold McQuaker, did confirm the dire situation, which includes senior staff departures and a field visit report from the Ministry of Labor, Training and Skills Development. A job posting to the town's website indicates Emo is looking for both a deputy treasurer and a casual administrative assistant. Attempts to contact the town office were unanswered, but a call to the Township of Mation's clerk confirmed she has temporarily assumed similar duties for Emo. Minister Greg Rickford was in Thunder Bay Wednesday to announce a 5-year, $75 million infrastructure investment for the 144 municipalities across Northern Ontario. The provincial funding is aimed at sustainable long-term growth for residents and businesses across the north. Alex Flood has the details.
Municipal leaders were excited to hear the Northern Ontario Resource Development Support Fund will be providing $15 million a year for 5 years to help tackle infrastructure projects. The funding per municipality is based on household counts, meaning Thunder Bay will get $400,000 starting next year. Minister Greg Rickford says the North faces a number of unique realities that require extra infrastructure work.
There are small but important infrastructure projects that municipalities don't always have the capital allocations to deal with. This is going to help with that and upgrade them to a standard that they're comfortable with on every level, from an economic development level to a safety level.
Municipalities will be able to submit a streamlined project information form and ensure that projects meet the program objectives. And we've worked diligently with your ministry to make sure that that was complementary to how things would work within our municipalities so that it wasn't an onerous process. And we thank you and your government for this added funding to our municipalities. Thank you very much.
Nords aims to share the benefits of mining and forestry with municipalities and complement existing funding streams for building infrastructure. Marathon Mayor Rick Dumas was concerned about receiving timely approval on the town's generation mining project, but Rickford quickly laid those worries to rest.
Do you fully approve and support these projects, of specific generation mining, and to Minister Piccini's desk to get the approval as quick as possible?
I'm very hopeful that we'll have some exciting news in the not too distant future around that project, and only too happy to come up to your community and celebrate it at that time.
Municipalities are encouraged to submit their projects for funding when the program is made available on December 7th. And funding for year one of the program will be distributed to eligible communities by March of 2022. Alex Flood, TBT News.
The transition is underway in Dryden as the municipal police force is soon to be replaced by the Ontario Provincial Police. The city's police chief has departed and an interim chief has been chosen from within the OPP ranks. Acting Inspector Ed Schwastek, seen here in the middle, is taking on the mantle of police chief following the resignation of Doug Paulson, seen on the right. Paulson has taken on a chief of police position in Manitoba. Schwastek was the detachment commander in Dryden and has served with the OPP for 27 years. Dryden Council voted in favor of disbanding the DPS in July, and on October 28th, the Ontario Civilian Police Commission gave the city the green light to terminate the employment of the 35 staffers as the local police service is abolished. Schwastek's appointment comes into effect this weekend and will last until February 24th, which is when the DPS will fully transition to the OPP. The Gull Bay First Nation has elected its new band council, and for the 8th time in the last 20 years, Wilfred King has been voted chief to serve the community for another 4 years. Gull Bay is located on Highway 527 north of Thunder Bay. Wilfred King defeated the 5 challengers, receiving 321 votes, about twice as many as second-place finisher Brian King. Gull Bay Council had delayed the election by over a year due to the pandemic, which led to criticism against the chief. Now that he's re-elected, he says his priorities include moving land claims to be settled, completing water treatment plant.
To be standing here right now, being the elected leader of Gull Bay First Nation, the people had faith in my leadership, and the results of what I've done in the last 20 years speak for themselves. And I want to, thank the membership for putting trust in my leadership once again.
10 band councillors were also elected to serve Gull Bay First Nation for the 4-year term. When we come back, cases of COVID-19 begin to rise again in the Thunder Bay District. Although case counts in the Thunder Bay district are surging right now, Dr. Janet DeMille says most of the active cases come from school outbreaks in Thunder Bay, and she wants people to know that they have a plan to diminish those situations. Following the COVID-19 outbreak at St. Martin's School and single cases at 4 other schools, Medical Officer Dr. Janet DeMille is very pleased to be able to provide kids aged 5 to 11 with the vaccine, which started on Friday.
It is ultimately exciting that fairly large group of people, 5 to 11-year-olds, have now had the opportunity to be immunized, which is actually going to protect them. We know that kids generally do okay with COVID-19, but there are still some serious outcomes, including some that are particular for kids.
She said that the general interest in bookings for the vaccine is high for families in the area, but she wasn't surprised based on vaccine rollouts in the past.
Anytime we've opened up eligibility, there's always people that are pretty keen and eager and will be the first to be at our door or be booking. And we have had, this morning it was over 2,000 people book through one of our clinics, whether here or in the district communities where we're running them.
They'll be running those mass immunization clinics in many district communities like Geraldton, Long Lac, Terrace Bay, and Marathon, to name a few. They've also partnered with Delico to provide clinics in the surrounding First Nations communities. That's the plan as of now, but DeMille made it clear that it's going to be a work in progress.
It's still evolving, so we'll be likely doing some more clinics there. And as well, we're going to be doing more targeted clinics here in Thunder Bay as well and in the surrounding communities over the month, especially in December, just to get out there and making sure that everybody has access to the vaccine.
Although the COVID-19 case count continues to rise in the district, DeMille is hopeful that the new vaccine eligibility will help with the increasing numbers.
You know, I was hoping we'd hold it off as long as we could, but it's very nice to see that we're much lower than we were last year. And I think once the outbreak maybe is, finished, then I'm hoping we'll see that decline in number of cases again.
Canada-U.S. border crossings are going to be a lot busier next week as big changes from Ottawa take effect. Starting at midnight Tuesday, Canadians will no longer have to produce a costly PCR test upon returning home if they spent less than 3 days out of the country. Corey Nordstrom spoke with border officials on what Canadians should know before they venture south.
We're definitely anticipating that it's going to be busier than it has been here for sure.
Traffic crossing into Canada recently at Pigeon River has mostly been for commercial purposes, but as of Tuesday, that will all change. Canadians can now make short trips to America without needing a PCR test to re-enter the country. Local officials with Canada Border Services say it will likely take at least twice as long to be cleared at the window after the changes.
Be prepared for that process to take longer because there is a lot more involved due to all of the health screening that we're doing.
Fisher wants travelers to be well prepared before they pull up to cross the border. Downloading and uploading information to the ArriveCAN app is still a necessity. Having separate proof of vaccine on your phone or physically is also required, in addition to the standard personal information.
It's a requirement. So if you show up and you haven't submitted your information into ArriveCAN, you can be put into quarantine for 14 days. If you're put into quarantine at the border, you're legally obligated to carry that quarantine out.
Another thing to remember before traveling south is the high rates of COVID-19 in Minnesota. The land of 10,000 lakes is third in average weekly case counts among North American states and provinces. Thunder Bay District Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Janet DeMille, offers some advice for those who plan on visiting Minnesota.
Ideally, don't hang out with any people who are sick, who have symptoms, because you could be exposed and could get infected as a result of that. Wear a mask, maintain 2 meters distance, be outside as much as you can. I know it gets a little cold, but certainly be in well-ventilated spaces if you're going inside.
And be warned. Travelers who stay even a minute longer than the 72-hour period will have to spend the money on a PCR test proving they didn't contract the virus or quarantine for 2 weeks after returning home. Corey Nordstrom, TBC News.
The highway twinning project in the Kenora area has taken another step forward following years of discussions with surrounding First Nations. Minister of Northern Development and Indigenous Affairs Greg Rickford and Ontario Transportation Minister Caroline Mulrooney were in the Kenora area last week to sign 2 contracts with Indigenous partners. One is for tree and brush removal within the new right-of-way for the first section of the Highway 17 twinning. The other is for producing the raw materials needed to build the road base. The 4-laning project has been on the table for more than a decade, and the 2 cabinet ministers say the Ford government is making it happen. Rickford, who also is the MPP for Kenora Rainy River, says he's looking forward to finally seeing physical work begin, knowing it will benefit many.
Shoal Lake 39, which sits right at the border, almost literally, is a community that had a requirement for a road to be built, to be repaired into and straightened into their community. So they're doing the clearing. That started like sometime this week or early next. Win 4 is involved in the raw material processing required to create the right-of-way once the trees are cut, and the RFP for the construction of the actual road, so the surface and other components is now well underway.
Earlier this month, Rickford was joined by Minister of Labour Monty McNaughton in Kenora to announce a $3.7 million training initiative for some of the Indigenous communities who are working on the project. Thunder Bay Atikokan MPP Judith Monteith Farrell is once again calling on the Ford government to fix what she calls a broken Northern Health travel grant system. Monteith Farrell was joined virtually by Thunder Bay residents Friday who have been left without funds after necessary trips for health care. She says that's the case for many Northerners and changes are needed as soon as possible. The NDP member first introduced a bill to fix the travel grant in December 2019, but it has laid dormant since that time. Last week, Monteith Farrell reintroduced the bill that aims at reviewing and improving the travel grant program.
Highlighting the need for this is something that we're heading into an election. Hopefully this will get some attention that in Northern Ontario, we deserve equitable access to health care. And that's very fundamental. It's something I hear at the doors, I hear from the public. And so I'm hopeful that that will go forward.
There's a lot of people who aren't as lucky as we are, who can, kind of get lucky enough to recoup from something like that, or even have the opportunity to pay for it up front and actually go forward with the treatment that your pediatrician recommends for you. So we're just incredibly frustrated with how this grant's been working.
Monteith Farrell has spoken to Progressive Conservative MPP Greg Rickford about the bill, and she says he seems to be in support of it. The Grassy Narrows lawsuit against the province was brought up this past week at Queen's Park. During the question period, Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa called on the Ford government to begin working with the First Nation to resolve land protection issues rather than issue mineral exploration permits on Grassy Narrows territorial lands.
Last Thursday, the Minister of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources and Forestry met with Chief Obister. The Chief was there to talk about the mining permits that Ontario issued on the treaty territory of Grassy Narrows without informing the First Nation. At the meeting, the Minister refused to discuss the mining issues. Speaker, this is so disrespectful. When will Ontario stop working against Grassy Narrows and work with them to resolve these land protection issues?
We will continue to work with ANA to establish a positive relationship and promote reconciliation to ensure the community is appropriately consulted with as we move forward. But as this issue is before the courts, I'm afraid I'm not able to answer any further.
In northeastern Ontario's Constant Lake First Nation, schools are closed and a work-from-home order is in effect as officials search 11 sites for the source of a dangerous fungus. Chief Ramona Sutherland says the fungus has been linked to dozens of possible cases of blastomycosis, which is a lung infection. 13 people have probable cases and 37 other possible cases are being investigated. Coming up after the break, a tourism strategy has been launched for a small marina located in the middle of the north shore of Lake Superior. An organization on the North Shore is looking to improve Rossport's marina in order to get a leg up on the inevitable return of tourists to the area. Superior Country, along with the Rossport Marina nonprofit, have completed a document which sets out a roadmap to develop the site and make it sustainable going forward. Adam Riley has the details.
There are times when Lake Superior can be unforgiving with waves capable of capsizing boats. When the lake gets rough, people need safe harbor. Enter the Rossport Marina. Nestled in the middle of the Lake Superior National Marine Conservation Area, the marina is a popular place for both tourists and residents, according to North Shore Tourism Coordinator Suzanne Kuko. As a result, Superior Country, in collaboration with the Rossport Marina nonprofit, which operates the marina, have put together a 3-year plan for the site.
So in there is a plan for improvement for the marina, looking at definitely, improving the wharf or improving it or replacing it, depending on what an assessment says. And then also, looking at sustainability instead of running just on volunteers, looking at possibly, hiring a marina manager, things like that.
Over the years, other North Shore communities have begun to shape their tourism strategies around the NMCA. Most recently, Terrace Bay opened their new waterfront pavilion and boardwalk to the community. Kuko says, unlike Terrace Bay, Rossport is operated by a local services board, thus the collaboration with Superior Country. Noting a similar project was completed last year at Silver Islet, which was fully refurbished.
They're both located, they're not in a municipality, it's an unorganized area, so they don't have that tax base. The harbor is run by volunteers in both places. It's a very important water access point. There are only a couple of them in the Lake Superior National Marine Conservation Area. Silver Islet, Rossport are the big ones.
So far, funding has been secured for an above and below water study of the marina for a structural engineering report. Kuko says the report will allow them to fully understand what needs to be done and if it needs a similar makeover like Silver Islet, which came in with a price tag of $3 million. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Some good news for members of the Terrace Bay hockey and skating community. There will be an ice in town in the arena for the 2021-2022 season. Ice for the arena was put in jeopardy earlier this year when it was revealed the brine pump had seized, with replacement parts unavailable due to the age of the pump. The concrete pad which the pump and 2 other brine pumps sit upon was beginning to crumble as well. Fortunately, a solution was found with some assistance from mill employees who were able to repair it with parts from the mill. Mayor Jody Davis says he is proud of the community for rallying to save the season.
Got a little bit of a problem with the seal, and that's since been replaced, and we're up and running, and now I believe we're now putting ice in the arena. So within 3 weeks, we should be skating in the arena, 3rd week in December, pardon me. So a pretty sad situation has turned out through local initiative, thanks to the mill, Burla and their employees that worked, showed the initiative and worked hard to make this happen.
Davis notes the repairs to the pump are a temporary measure and the whole system, which is completely obsolete, needs to be replaced along with the concrete pad, which he says will be included in next year's budget. An Indigenous-led company in Thunder Bay is donating a large sum of money to the Mikianakus Children's Fund. The donation will help provide basic amenities such as food, clothing, and shelter to First Nations children. Jason Thompson, the owner of Superior Strategies, started selling Every Child Matters t-shirts and flags throughout the summer. He pledged to donate $5 from every sale to the charity, and more than $20,000 was raised to help children from remote First Nations.
Ultimately, it was inspired, by the finding of the burial sites at the residential schools, and we were looking for a local charity to help support, right? Because we truly believe in the future of our Indigenous people, in honoring, those who survived and those who were lost at the residential schools.
This funding is a game changer. So we heavily rely on the donations from individuals and corporations to do our programming. And this donation means that, more kids are going to receive warm winter gear. We're going to be able to send more sporting equipment into communities and provide more in-school meals.
Thompson says the t-shirts are still for sale and that their ultimate goal is to influence change within the community. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's version of Northwest Newsweek. We'll see you next time.